Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Nature Cure Summit, where we are driving home the idea that all you need to heal, grow, and thrive can be found in nature, the universe, and within ourselves, not in a lab. I'm your host, Dr. Michelle Sands, and we're bringing you experts from around the globe in a variety of different modalities who all believe that you can use the power of nature to look good, feel good, and live your best life. So today, we are all in for a treat. I am super excited to bring you my guest today. He's not a doctor, he's not a researcher, he doesn't write prescriptions, and he doesn't do surgeries, but he uses humor, compassion, makeup, and fashion to promote wellness with a wow. So I'm pleased to introduce you to Max Szadek. He is also known as Mr. Divabetic. So he's the founder and visionary behind Divabetic. It's a nonprofit organization, and it's an industry leader in non-traditional diabetes education. So they use glamour and fun. They transform the lives of thousands of women, really inspiring them, teaching them to have hope, boosting their spirits, and encouraging them to really approach life with a lot of sass and fun. So they've got so many innovative programs, and I wanted to bring him to you today to really show you that there's so many different approaches to improving your health and learning about disease and health. So Max, thank you so much for being here. I'm so excited.
Hi everybody, so glad to be here. Hi divas.
Yeah, you guys are all divas listening today, so just so you know. So Max, tell us a little bit about that. So your organization, it's a play on words, it's about diabetes care, but you call it Divabetics, which is really cool. So there's a whole story behind that. And like most of us in the healthcare industry, it's a personal story. A lot of us get into the work we do because of something that happens in our lives. So you have a really interesting story. So can you share that with us?
I'd love to. I'm from entertainment. Like you said, I'm not a doctor. I had a career working in theater for most of my life, and theater led me into rock and roll. And in 1993, I got the opportunity to go on tour with Luther Vandross, who I hope the divas know Luther. I mean, he's all over YouTube. You could always check out his songs. So I went on the Never Let Me Go tour, and that tour turned into a life-changing experience for me, and I ended up becoming Luther's full-time assistant. So I worked with Luther from 1993 until 2005 when he passed away. In 2003, when he recorded the Dance with My Father album, and we had just finished doing the live recording for Radio City Music Hall, Luther, if fans out there know, Valentine's Day was the big day for Luther Vandross fans. He went out to Radio City Music Hall. So he had just finished Dance with My Father. It had not been released. We had just finished the Radio City Music Hall concerts, and he was going to make a live album. And also he was relocating to, I'm in New York, so I'm pointing around, but he was relocating to an apartment on 72nd and 5th Avenue. So we were remodeling, and I had to stop by the apartment to meet with some decorators. And so I knew Luther might be there, but I wasn't sure. So I knocked on the door, and no one answered on a sunny April day. And I didn't have the keys with me. So I ended up having to break down the door. And when I walked in, I found my boss, Luther Vandross, on the floor after suffering a stroke. His stroke was related to type 2 diabetes. He was diagnosed in the early 80s when he first started his solo career in 1981. And so I knew he had diabetes. I had diabetes in my family. I have an Italian grandmother who had diabetes. But like most people out there, I didn't know much about it. Mm-hmm. So outside of occasionally picking up his medications, Dr. Michelle, I wasn't really involved in the day-to-day care. Right. But when that stroke happened, I suddenly became very aware of how dangerous diabetes can be if it goes unmanaged.
Yeah, it's so impactful, and it's a story that you don't want to have to tell, but I think through that pain you had to go through, and through his tragic death, I mean, you've really turned that around to change the lives and make a different story for other people.
Well, Luther was such an elegant man on and off stage, and he had a lot of dignity. And I saw how the stroke robbed him of his dignity. And that really hurt. First, it hurt because I couldn't be there to stop the stroke. Then it hurt to see through the next 2 years of his life how diminished his lifestyle was. And I really was so engaged in it because I became his full-time caregiver. And I wanted to alert the fans because there was so much national attention around the fact that my former boss had a stroke, but they weren't really making the connection between stroke and diabetes. Yeah. So I was asked to promote the Dance with My Father album with his mother. And due to the course of that, I saw this opportunity to do more and to help his fans keep their house a home by learning how to prevent a stroke or another complication related to diabetes from occurring. So there I was trying to figure out what to do, and they held a tribute concert for my boss at Madison Square Garden, and Patti LaBelle, who is living with type 2 diabetes, was a good friend of Luther. She used to visit him in the hospital, was up on stage, and she was just all decked out, looking very diva head to toe. Yeah. And so she was performing his song, Power of Love, and she kind of stopped in the middle of the song and addressed the crowd and admitted that she had diabetes, and diabetes didn't have her. And I looked up at that stage and said, oh my God, you're not a diabetic, you're a diva. And the diabetic popped into my head. And so I ran home after the concert, and I wrote out diabetic with a black pen, and then I took a red pen and put the V between the I and the A, and it spelled divabetic. And I knew that V symbolized Luther Vandross. Right. And that was the difference. That was about, if he had been more outspoken about his diabetes, if he had an entourage like a diva does with hair and makeup, but also around health care, we could have supported him and perhaps prevented the stroke from occurring. So the message of being a divabetic is about being glamorous, being outspoken, and really having a new attitude, like Patti LaBelle sings about living with diabetes.
Exactly. Well, and I love the way she said that she had diabetes, but diabetes did not have her. That embraces the diva attitude.
And people always ask me if I knew Patti LaBelle, and I had to put this on Facebook the other day. I actually gave her the very first T-shirt because she inspired me. And so I met her and said, you know, I'm going to start this T-shirt nonprofit organization to raise money for people with diabetes to help them buy supplies. I was trying to raise money for an insulin pump at first.
Okay, and wow. So that's the humble beginnings of this organization. It started out as a T-shirt company?
A T-shirt. It was very funny. So I gave her the first T-shirt. She calls herself a divabetic to this day. And then every time I would go out, I would go to all these health fairs in the New York area. I live in New York City. Mm-hmm. And people would see the boas and the rhinestones. And we have a slogan on the back of that T-shirt that says, "Sugar's a bitch, not me." And love that. Women love that. So yeah. They would ask me what else did we do. So at that time I did baseball caps and visors, but they really wanted me to do programming. So I tentatively began doing diabetes programming about 12 years ago and never stopped. And to this day, I traveled around the country with a Make Over Your Diabetes program. I went to 10 major cities. Then I went on the road with my own Mr. Divabetic show. And I also started divabetic clubs in Philly, West Palm Beach, Cleveland, and New York. And trying to mix glamour and beauty with diabetes because, you know, most people I'm sure who are listening, they don't want to deal with their diabetes.
Right. It's not sexy. Like, it's not a sexy topic, you know.
And part of that is it's not sexy, but another part of that is like their healthcare providers, when you're first diagnosed, especially I'm talking about type 2, mm-hmm. kind of told that you need to start to do something, but you're not really told how to do it.
Right.
And I don't really agree with scare tactics, but I do agree with being respectful of the disease. And right. So what I try to do, because I meet so many women who have been living it with several years, but really don't have much of an understanding of the disease or even have a self-care routine. They've been urged to lose weight. Mm-hmm. And lose the weight, they won't have diabetes. And we all know that losing weight is probably the hardest thing you could be asked to do.
Exactly. And we're usually told to do that by an overweight doctor, right? The doctor is telling you to lose weight and you like look back at them and say, you need to lose weight too. You know, it's confusing. It's like, you know, if you knew how to lose weight, you probably would have already done it, right?
Right, so if you lose the weight and then let's say you lose the weight, that's all great. But then if you gain it back, then you're back to, now you've been living with diabetes for this length of time.
Right.
And you still don't have a care routine. And I only say that because this is what happened with Luther. Luther had a very public battle with his weight throughout his entire career. He would gain and lose up to an excess of 100 pounds. And in my time, he did it like 2 or 3 times. And I would bring him to step aerobics and we tried to do things. But he was an emotional eater when people weren't really talking about being an emotional eater. And I don't like to talk about him privately too much, but that's an issue that I think most people watching can relate to. And so there's a lot more going on around a diagnosis of diabetes than just pricking your finger and at your blood sugars. You kind of have to understand your relationship with food, your relationship with your body, how anxiety and other things affect your blood sugars, and begin to develop a routine around that. And our organization, Vivabetic, is really focused on sparking an interest to want to learn more. Because once you become more confident in your care, then you could really live like a diva. And that burst of confidence, I hope, comes through with all the glitter and the fun you see on our website and our videos and our Facebook.
Yeah. So you make it like actually fun and inviting for women to get started on this journey of learning more about their own self-care. And so how does like having your makeup done or getting a manicure or seeing a fashion show, how does that translate into better care or healthier lives?
I think it goes back to the self-confidence. I think when you, Luther had like 4 or 5 background singers on the road with them, and they would have hair and makeup done every night before a show. He loved to spend a lot of money to make them put on their best performance. And so I took from that idea of how do you put on your best performance. And sometimes just having a mini massage or getting like a safe manicure or pedicure or getting a makeover or getting your hair done just sparks interest in you to love yourself a little bit more. And I do agree with the idea that you have to love yourself in order to want to take care of your diabetes health. If you dress up every day, I mean, everyone out there is listening knows this. If you dress up and feel good about yourself, you're so much more willing to get involved in what's going on with you. That suddenly you're the priority when you're in front of the mirror and you're putting together an outfit. You become the priority. And a lot of people watching right now, they're not the priority in their life. They've got children, their spouse. A lot of us have our parents are still alive, so we're dealing with the sandwich generation. And so that's another thing, like finding the time to deal with your diabetes, especially for women, is quite taxing. And so sometimes it's just finding out a great little beauty secret around diabetes that you could be checking your blood sugars in the morning between the blow dry, the shampoo and the blow dry. Or
that's awesome. Exactly. That's an awesome tip right there. And yeah, I think that, allowing yourself to pamper yourself, it does kind of set the tone for taking care of yourself. And you're right. When you feel good about yourself, you're going to want to take care of that body that you have and that, who you are, because you feel better about who you are. And I don't think a lot of people are approaching that from that perspective. And
I also want to say, Dr. Michelle, that, and I know some people will understand this, when you're diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, again, or type 1, you feel like your body let you down. If you don't know anything about your body and you haven't really empowered yourself to learn about your body or even where your pancreas is, it's awfully confusing and awfully overwhelming.
Yes.
That's why we also add that beauty with the fun and how we educate, because that's very overwhelming to suddenly try to get back, regain your life after feeling like something let you down. Most of the women I would meet or have met and continue to meet would do anything to go back a day before that diagnosis and go left instead of right. But if that does happen and you do feel like your body let you down, you have to really go through an emotional coping process of the grief, the bargaining, the anger, the frustration, in order to come out on that other level. And that's another thing I really try hard to tackle with my educators. And I'm saying it in a very serious way, but we do it in a fun way with our monthly podcast. But I think the emotional side of this, the not being your own priority, feeling like your body let you down, not really liking the way you look or who you are today, 20 years after, you're no longer fitting into the high school jeans or something really changed in your body. Our bodies all change as we get older. That all adds to this thing about pushing diabetes away.
Yeah. And I think it rings true for pretty much any disease that someone can be struggling with. I mean, it's a very similar feeling where, you do feel like you've been let down or you did something wrong. And a lot of times people tend to suffer in silence or to withdraw when they have an issue like this. And I love that you've created this community, this safe place, this fun place for women to not only learn to take care of themselves, but do it among other women who are, like-minded and struggling with the same thing.
Well, I think, the vast majority of men and women living with either type 1, type 2, gestational diabetes, prediabetes, admit to the stigma around diabetes, that blame and shame game.
Yeah.
And only, people, I've talked to so many women about this, about how we've done some dual diagnosis programming around breast cancer and diabetes because there is a link between that. Like they're now finding a link between HIV and diabetes. But regarding a cancer diagnosis, you would, Dr. Michelle, come up and hug me and tell me you're so sorry and encourage me. If I came to you and said I was diagnosed with diabetes, 9 times out of 10, you would think it was, in some way you would indicate that it was my fault, and there's a good chance that the next day you would bring me back my favorite cupcakes or whatever you thought to make it easier. So you kind of already are sabotaging me in any attempt I am to try to change a lifestyle. And I don't want to say that weight is the only thing to do with diabetes.
Right.
These two things do travel together quite often. And so it's important to realize that where we might be hugging someone with one chronic illness, we're not hugging them with another.
Right.
I want to be a safe place. I want divabetic.org to be somewhere where people could come and they can lay down their burden. They could share their successes. They could share their failures or their struggles. I don't think there's a failure. I mean, I make mistakes.
Yeah. They're mistakes, but they're not failures. I mean, we all learn. I think mistakes have a purpose. We all learn from them.
And then they could take that boost of confidence and then start Googling and start looking for new doctors and start creating a healthcare team around them. And we're there really to spark the interest, to kind of dress you up and get you back up on your feet and have you never stop, never give up.
That's awesome. So how can people find out more about if there's an event in their area, or if they're not on, that sounds like it's mostly on the East Coast. If they're not on the East Coast, if they're on the West Coast or in another country even, how can they find out more or get involved even online?
Well, you're right. We do most of our events on the East Coast. I did do events out in LA at I was on the Paramount lot for several years. I know the LA divas, if they hear this, are going to say, he's coming back. I'm not coming back yet. I'm dying to come back and do another diva-style outreach event. But right now, I'm primarily in New York and Philadelphia. However, you could always tune into our free monthly podcast. It's on Blog Talk Radio. It's on iTunes. Every month I work with Sony Music. Luther Vandross was on Sony. So I partner with Sony and I play new music by an artist. And then we have educational diabetes education in between there and people talking about their diabetes, or someone like you, Dr. Michelle, telling us some great advice about how to get back to nature. And last month we played Alicia Keys. This month we featured George Michael. Next month we have the music by Gladys Knight. And then in April, we're going to have Della Reese and my friend Lisa Fisher, who used to work with Luther Vandross and now tours with the Rolling Stones, was on a Grammy-nominated song with Lang Lang, a Chinese pianist, and she got nominated for a Grammy, so she's going to come back on the show. And then I have some amazing educators like Susan Weiner, Joy Pape, Hood Warshaw, Patricia Addy Gentle, Neva White, all coming up to give education.
Very nice.
Or you could go to our Facebook page And we have two Facebook. We have a Facebook group and we have a Facebook page. And a lot of times, I get a message. I just got a message yesterday from a woman. I'm going to say she's in New Orleans. I got to think about it. But anyhow, I always try to connect them to educators. So if they want to email me on either one of those pages, if they're listening and they want someone to help them out, I'll usually set them up with a certified diabetes educator. That's a registered dietitian or a registered nurse who has spent the time in patient care to learn as much about diabetes as possible to help them tackle whatever issues are coming up for them.
Awesome. And we'll put all those links below this interview so you guys can just click on them. You don't have to search. So Max, what would you, if someone out there is right now struggling with diabetes and not feeling very empowered, what would be one tip you can give them to really start turning over a different leaf?
Well, thank you for asking. I'm right in the middle of my Diabetes Mystery podcast, which is going to come out in September. And I do it every year. It's the fourth year because I really believe in being a diabetes detective. Now, when I say detective, I like to think of Murder, She Wrote, or NBC just celebrated their 90th anniversary, so Policewoman. I think every sexiest Charlie's Angel detective you want. And the idea here is like, what happens when you have an unexpected low or high blood sugar? A lot of times people get very frustrated. So my tip is really about being a diabetes detective. First, you want to look for the clues. This is when you go to the doctor's office and they just take your A1C and you don't show them any other information, you're kind of doing yourself a disservice.
Right.
This would be like, really, Dr. Michelle, you and I, you'd start looking for clues. Why did that number on my meter happen?
Right. How did you sleep? What did you eat?
Were you arguing with your spouse? Did you forget to pick up your son at school? Did your neighbor tell you that they don't like the color of your house? Whatever. Did the interior designer not bring you the furniture back in time for the big party? All those things really affect your blood sugars. Yeah. So you start looking at the clues. Then you look for a pattern. So, if you eat a white potato and your blood sugar spikes and then you try a sweet potato and it doesn't spike, that's kind of an interesting pattern to take into account. Or if you're always on Tuesdays having a low around lunchtime, that's a pattern to look at. Just like every time I get off the phone with my mother, my blood sugar spikes.
I think my blood sugar spikes when I get off the phone with my mom, and I'm not diabetic.
Most of us do. And you go to the authorities with your clues and your patterns, and in this case, your authority would be your healthcare provider. Yeah. And you sit down, and now you present the argument and the evidence you found to find a solution. I think just changing your mind frame, that you're now on CSI or any of those shows and you're investigating why this number happened, changes the whole mindset of how you look at the number. It's not a failure.
Right.
It's evidence to help you find on your way to a road to being happier and healthier. And I do those mystery podcasts every year. I work with a best-selling author, Tanya Cappies. I work with diabetes educators. I work with actors because we want to have fun. Like this year, I'm going to the Mermaid Parade in Coney Island. It's all about body acceptance, and somehow my character always ends up in, being innocently. People think that I've committed a murder, and I was like.
Well, that's a great tip for anyone who's listening who may have any health condition, to really be your own detective. Don't rely on your doctor to tell you what the important information is, right? Be your own detective and look for those clues and come to your appointment with your healthcare provider armed with information to not only help them, but to help you so they can better help you to really understand what's going on. A lot of times I'll liken it to when you take your dog to the vet. Your dog's not feeling good. The vet will ask, well, what did he eat? How did he poop? Is he lying down? Is he exercising? Is he tired? Is he going outside? But you go to the doctor for yourself, and they don't ask you any of those things. They just take your blood test and tell you, look at your numbers. But, sometimes we need to take a clue from the vets, right? Like we have to figure out what's going on, what's really going on in your life. And it's up to us to all really be our own detective and arm ourselves with that information. I think that's a great tip.
And like back to you though, and get a little Cagney Lacey style about it, and bring someone with you, because if you're the one who's like the dog lying down there and down, it's really hard to hear that information about you when it's not good information. I mean, we all want to get on the scale and have them go, gosh, you're 10 pounds lighter, amazing. But most of the time, we all know it's the opposite of that. So,
Right.
when you're hearing bad news, it's normal to shut down.
Yes.
And you need to have someone there taking notes, writing it down, because you hear the first piece of bad news and then you don't hear the rest of the information they're providing. And it's so important for people out there. One of our biggest things is you're not alone. And the first way to not be alone is to bring someone with you to the doctor's office, and someone that supports you and loves you and will help you through this.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone should be a superwoman. I mean, I think everyone is a superwoman.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you should have to show me your cape to prove it. I think
Yeah, even Batman has Robin, right? Like they all have their sidekick, so you need to have a sidekick to help you. I think that's a great tip, because even when I go to a doctor, even though I am very knowledgeable in medicine, when it's about you, sometimes you get caught up in what they're saying, then you'll forget to ask your questions. You don't really hear all the information. So you're right. It can be very emotional, but then it could also be a little bit intimidating, because the doctor is a lot of times viewed as an authority figure. And then you're there in his office listening to his advice and what he says. But, in reality, you are the boss in the doctor's office. He's working for you. I always tell my patients, like, I am serving you. And so you're in charge of this, because it's your life. And so it's really important to know that. But to have someone to advocate for you that's super. It's so important.
Yeah, and I think you should flirt with other doctors too and find the one that works for you. I mean, it's be on The Bachelorette when you're looking for, it's you, and there should be 20 options out there. I mean, I talk to so many women who need a better doctor because the doctor they have isn't approaching their care the way they need them to.
Yeah.
I don't want to define what that is. I just know that if you don't feel like you're being respected or heard, something like diabetes, that means you need to look for someone else. The problem isn't you.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's a beautiful thing to say. Yeah, it does have to be, it is like having a relationship. You do have to click, and you have to have that chemistry with your doctor so that they understand they understand not just your words, but where you're coming from emotionally and spiritually, and that you understand them. It's so many times my patients have come to me from other doctors, and they'll come to me with a diagnosis, but they won't understand what it means. And so, not being afraid to ask the question, say, what does that mean? What does that number on my lab report mean? And most doctors, if they're good doctors and they actually enjoy what they do for a living, will be more than happy to explain it to you. And you're right, if they don't, then, find the next one. There's plenty of them out there.
It comes back to this idea that our lives have gotten so busy today, and seeing those lab results, that's again, it goes back to being overwhelming. And some of us don't have time for it. We have 2 jobs, or we have a family and a job, or we have our neighborhood watch and our yoga class. And it just, you can't make time for it. And you have to make time for it. So you have to find ways to make it easier to find time for it. And one of the ways is when you are around people to value your own time and make sure you're around the people you need to be around. And if you're not, then you need support. You need to find, and I'm not urging anyone to just switch a doctor. I mean, sometimes you need to hear other women tell the same story, maybe not exactly like yours, and men too, to find out that you're not alone in this, and suddenly your personal story becomes something I could take with me and move forward and say, look, what Dr. Michelle did, if she could do it, I could do it too. Or, I could help encourage you to do it based on just being me. I wasn't, like you said at the beginning, I'm not a doctor. I did not want to get involved in health. That would have been the last thing I would have chosen to do. I am very much into putting on a show Luther Vandross was an exciting, amazing entertainer. So my legacy for my boss was to make diabetes education as entertaining as a Luther Vandross concert and try to just get people into show mode, into really having fun, getting dressed up, getting out there. Once I get you through Friday night, then the rest of the week is yours. But I just want people to feel good on that Friday night that I could manage this and I could go forward and I could start taking some of these little tips and putting it together on their terms, in their own pace. That's what has always seemed to resonate with the women we outreach to that do that.
It's such a fabulous message, and you do such a fabulous job at it. So I think it's amazing. So what's up next for Divabetics? What's on the calendar next? This interview is airing in March.
Yes, I think I'm going to be at the American Diabetes Association in March in New York City. I have a fabulous workout routine. Most of the divas know. I love Dancing with the Stars, so I invented a chair workout called Dancing in Cars. So you get a
That's awesome. Is that on
an international moving car? But it is fun to do. And then I have my mystery podcast coming up in September. I'm going to be live at the parades. I love to go to the parades and raise awareness for diabetes in a fun new way. So this year I'll be at the Easter Parade, then I'll be at the Mermaid Parade. Those are both in New York. But then I'm going to, I'll be in the DC area for the first time. I'm hosting a Divapedic fashion show, a dog fashion show, raising awareness for diabetes alert dogs. That's a hot topic in the diabetes community, and how these diabetes alert dogs can help anyone manage their diabetes. And so I'll be talking to dog expert Debbie Kay, who's been on my show several times. She, not only has she written a book about it, she also helps people with training their own dog or can train a dog to be a diabetes alert dog and help people manage their diabetes, specifically around those hypo and hyperglycemic episodes. So I'll be doing it my Divapedic.
That is so cool. You never stop. That's so awesome. I have a question. The Dancing in Cars, that one, is that on a video, or is that you have to be there in person for that?
I love that question. I have to do the video.
Yes.
I always get asked to do the video. I mean, I feel like I probably need to find time to do the video, but it's something they have to do live, but it would make
somebody shoot it, and I just know my audience would love to see that.
Oh no, I would love to do it for your audience. We'll have to do a live one, and I'll do it live because it will.
Awesome.
It'll be kind of silly. I am kind of silly, but I like to have. I feel that we spent. Divabetic was about changing attitudes in diabetes, and that's my organization. My personal thing is changing the way you learn about diabetes and making it fun with games. I've always envisioned myself as a Bob Barker.
You are totally fun.
I love to play games, and I love to do exercises that you could do wearing what you're wearing right now and me in a suit. I don't think you have to go to the gym if you're not comfortable with that to get a workout in. I think it'd be fun.
Awesome. So you do also have a free gift for everyone listening.
I do. I said I thank you. Meow is what I say. Mary Tyler Moore just passed away. We love, that was MTM. Remember that at the end of her show? Mm-hmm. Amazing Divabetic. Can I just say out loud? I met Mary Tyler Moore twice. Exceptional woman. I think one of the first celebrities to really speak out about diabetes. She was living with type 1, diagnosed in her early 30s, lived to her 80s. Unfortunately, lost her recently. But what a passionate advocate and such a wonderful woman for telling the truth about diabetes. I mean, she dealt with neuropathy, some eyesight loss at the end of her life, but still 50 years of living with diabetes. I think it's exceptional, and it could serve as an inspiration to anyone out there. So I'm going to send everyone who comes to our Facebook page, how about that? I'll send you a private sneak peek at our Carb Kitty video. Now, Carb Kitty is a video game that debuted on D-Life several years ago, and it was so popular that I had to do more. So I have created a series of Carb Kitty videos, but I have some, Dr. Michelle, for people watching right now that no one has ever seen, so they could watch it and they could review it and they could let me know how they want Carb Kitty to change in the fall.
Awesome. So Carb Kitty teaches you how to count carbs in a fun way?
Yes, it's a game that you get 3 items and you have to decide which one has the most carbs. And yes, it's carb counting is such a great tool for anyone with diabetes to learn. And it's something that people shouldn't be afraid of. It's something that you could take that on very slowly and start learning how to count things just using menus. If you go to the menu and just become more aware of it. When you start to become aware of it, that's when things change. So I always tell people, like with carb counting, don't get overwhelmed with it before you even start. Just decide, most of us eat the same food every day, regardless if we want to or not.
Right.
Choose one of those foods you eat and learn how much is in the muffin or how much is in the chai latte, or, and start to look at that one item first. Again, going back to the detective, and see what happens to your blood sugars, and then add to that. Once you learn it, it never goes away. You just keep adding to it, like Elizabeth Taylor added to her jewelry collection.
Awesome. On that note, I just want to thank you so much.
I feel like I should throw in one more diva, because this is like a diva glam.
Yeah, it's diva, awesome. And all you guys out there watching, you guys are the divas for sure. Gosh, it's just been so amazing talking to you, and I could just feel the fun and the excitement that you exude in everything you do. So I just wish we could, bring it to more cities or to more people in the future, and I'm sure you're working on that. Let me know. Please let our audience know, and myself, how we can support you in expanding what you're doing.
Thank you so much. Check out, we're at divabeg.org. We're a national nonprofit. You could donate at our organization. And always come to our Facebook page or tune into the podcast, because I think just those numbers alone help more people hear about us.
Exactly. And share it. Share the message with those, I know that everybody listening to this knows somebody with diabetes who didn't get a chance to listen to this interview. So please share this interview and share the information, because your sharing is caring and you're helping so many people. So thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you guys for listening. Have a wonderful day. Be sure to check out all the links below the video so you can get the Carb Kitty videos. You can learn more about Max and his amazing organization. So take care, you guys. Have a great day, and we'll see you back tomorrow. Hey there, it's Dr. Michelle, and I just wanted to commend you and thank you for spending a little bit of your day to do something empowering. I hope that you found value in today's content, and that you'll go out and use this new information to improve your life, even in a small way. I want you to open up to the possibility of making today, this week, and this year the greatest possibility you've had so far to improve your life. This is about breaking out of old paradigms. It is about learning the act of living naturally. It's about honoring who you are and allowing all that is good into your life. I promise to continue to bring you educational, empowering, and inspiring content to help you achieve the body you dream about, but more importantly, help you live the life you deserve. Remember, all that you need, you already have. It's right here, in nature and within yourself. So stay tuned for some more value-packed interviews, and be sure to check out all of the resources at glownaturalmedicine.com.